All right, so what's up, boys? This is the final episode of the second quarter for the week. I'm your co-host, Jacob Eichenlaub. This guy right here is Dalton Carty, and we're going to look into the Heisman voting and how all the results played out, and then we're also going to look into our college football playoff predictions and see who we got making it and winning.
So first in the Heisman talk, the voting goes Bryce Young first, Aiden Hutchinson second, Kenny Pickett third, and then C.J. Stroud fourth. Personally, I didn't agree with this, the voting in this. Obviously, Bryce Young is the winner, yes.
See, I agreed Hutchinson should go second, but I think Stroud should have been over Pickett.
I think Stroud should have been second.
I don't.
Hutchinson really didn't do a whole lot this year, except for I believe he was the most team impactful player this year. Set the franchise record for sacks, but he was second in them in the league.
He typically showed up in the big games. I believe 7 of his sacks came against Penn State, Ohio State, and Iowa. 7 of his sacks came in those 3 games, which obviously they needed to win the Penn State game so they have a chance to make the Big Ten title game. And they had to win the Ohio State game to get to the Big Ten title game. And everyone knows Iowa was the Big Ten title game.
I think Hutchinson should have been third just for team impact. He was the most team impactful player in college football. Obviously, Bryce Young was going first. He was going to be first no matter what. He did have an extra game on Stroud, though, but that's obviously, the Buckeyes were not the better team than Alabama. They didn't deserve to play that extra game in the Big Ten championship. But Bryce Young, fourth in passing yards, second in touchdowns, tied for fourth with fewest picks in the NCAA, and he was second in QBR. So obviously Bryce Young was going number one, ended up with 684 first place votes, 107 second place votes, 45 third place votes, for a total of about 2,311, I believe.
Yeah, 2,311 points.
Second, I really think it should have been Stroud. I mean, I know Stroud, that devastating loss to Michigan.
He was also very inconsistent at the start of the year.
They did take him out in games where they had the win locked up to where
he was also benched a game with that injury, and that did hurt him, but he was kind of inconsistent at times, and it's hard to be bad with that receiver core. So
absolutely. That receiver core is, and Jigba Smith is going top 5 in 2 years.
Yeah, and then Wilson and Olave going this year. Both going to be first-round picks.
Both of them probably top 15 picks.
Yeah, probably top 15. I think Wilson deserves to go over Olave personally. He seems more pro-ready to me.
Olave definitely a better route runner, I would say for sure. So it's going to be kind of like a Hunter Renfrow or Justin Jefferson kind of. I feel like those are good comparisons for him. But C.J. Stroud finished fourth in the Heisman voting, and I think he should have went second. Not just because I'm an Ohio State fan. I do believe that he should have went second. Ohio State definitely, had a very disappointing year, especially losing to Michigan and then Oregon early on in the year. C.J. Stroud was actually 8th in passing yards with 3,862, finished 5th in touchdowns with 38, and then he was tied for 25th with interceptions, but only threw one more than Bryce Young, and then he was first in QBR with 89.8. So, but Bryce Young had that extra game on him. And deservingly so. Like they absolutely were the better team. They absolutely deserved to play that extra game. I just think Stroud should have been second over Hutchinson. Hutchinson had great team impact. I really think what put him over was the win against Ohio State.
I would agree with that. And then even being a Michigan fan, I really don't think he deserved to win the Big Ten championship game MVP. I mean, yeah, he played great, but he only had like 1 sack. And I feel like that was just more of a defensive team effort. Then you had big plays galore with Michigan, especially at the start of the game.
Running backs definitely played a big game in that,
I mean, third-string running back Donovan Edwards threw a touchdown pass. Blake Corum had a 67-yard rush. It was a great team offensive game for Michigan. Then the defense obviously played great, but I do agree with Hutchinson going second, but I feel like that he just had a bunch of hype in him. Hutch for Heisman was trending. Like they're just like, well, shit, we gotta vote for him now.
Yeah, definitely those last 3 games definitely kind of leapfrogged him over quite a few. I think we could all agree Kenny Pickett didn't deserve third, though. I feel like he should have went fourth. Yep, Kenny Pickett though 5th in yards, 3rd in touchdowns, tied for 57th in pick, threw 7 interceptions, so only 2 more than Stroud. And then he was 7th in QBR with 81.5. He actually finished with 28 first-place votes, 175 second-place votes, and 197 third-place votes for a total of 631. Hutchinson's had a total of 954. Obviously, he had the most second-place votes. And the second most third-place votes Hutchinson did.
Yeah.
And then Kenny Pickett had the most third, obviously.
I think what really shocked me was the fact that Will Anderson got more first place votes than Stroud and Pickett,
I think we can
but
all
wasn't
agree.
a finalist.
I think we can all agree that Will Anderson did not deserve to be top 5 in Heisman voting. Maybe top 10, but not top 5. Kenneth Walker definitely should have went higher. I think Kenneth Walker should have been 5th, if not 4th, over Kenny Pickett. Kenneth Walker had 18 first place votes, 53 second place votes, and 85 third place votes for a total of 245. Was the best running back in college football at the time for Michigan State. I mean, Michigan State had 2 losses, and both of them were really big losses.
They got upset by Purdue and then just fucking clobbered by Ohio State.
Absolutely.
And I really think that game is what hurt Walker's Heisman candidacy because he only had 6 carries.
Yeah, but I mean, you can't run the ball when you're down that big.
He only got 3 carries on their first drive.
Yeah. So the Kenneth Walker, I think, should have won a lot higher than what he did, and I think Will Anderson was a little bit too high. So that concludes our Heisman talk. We're going to move into our college football playoff predictions. Number 1 Alabama versus number 4 Cincinnati, and the number 2 Michigan versus number 3 Georgia. I do agree that these are the teams that should have played each other. I don't agree with the seeding though.
Yeah, I think it should have been Michigan 1, Bama 2, Cincy 3, and Georgia 4. But personally, I don't fucking think Georgia should have made it after what they did against Alabama. They crapped themselves.
They were still the best team throughout college football up until that point.
They gave up 7 points a game because they played nobody.
They had Kentucky.
Wow,
They had
8 and
Kentucky.
4 Kentucky.
They had Kentucky. They were 11 at the time. So, I mean, it was a big game at the time.
Kentucky was the best team you beat.
So, my playoff prediction for the first game, obviously, against number 1 Alabama versus number 4 Cincinnati, I think Bama's going to blow them out of the water 51-27. Cincinnati's playing with tremendous pressure with being a non-Power 5 school. I don't think their defense is good enough to handle out of Alabama's offense, especially Bryce Young coming off of the winning the Heisman Trophy award. And then Bama's defense is just too good for Cincy's offense. Desmond Ridder is not a good enough quarterback to kind of excel that team over Alabama.
See, I also have Bama winning 45-38, but in the end, I really think it comes down to which Bama team shows up. The team that played Georgia or the team that played Auburn.
Yeah. They do have a tendency to sometimes play down to the level of their competition. Yeah. But I think that Georgia team is going to show up, especially with the trip to the championship on the line. So I have a huge win for the Crimson Tide. Moving on to number 2 Michigan versus number 3 Georgia.
This guy has a horrible prediction for that one.
I think it's a good prediction.
It's not.
I have Michigan losing 13-27 against Georgia, strictly because it's going to be a defensive slugfest. I don't think McNamara is good enough to take Michigan's offense over Georgia's defense. I don't think that JT Daniels or
Stetson Bennett.
I don't think Stetson Bennett's good enough to take. Stetson Bennett or JT Daniels are good enough to take him over Michigan's defense, and I don't think McNamara is good enough to take him over Georgia's defense. I do think Georgia's going to end up coming out with a win here, especially if they start JT Daniels, give him like a nice spark on offense other than Stetson Bennett. So if they start JT Daniels, I definitely think that Georgia's got a really good shot. If they start Stetson Bennett, it's going to be a little bit closer.
Oh, I think Georgia has a chance to win. I don't think they're going to. The best team that played all year just fucking clobbered them.
I think they're going to.
The best team they played all year was Bama, and Bama just he pulled an Urban Meyer, like what he did to Josh Lambo. He just fucking kicked his ass.
I definitely think that Georgia's going to want to play Bama again, and that's really going to drive them to win this game.
That's what I think is going to fuck them over because they're looking forward. Because if Bama beats Cincinnati, because Bama and Cincinnati play first, Georgia's going to be in the locker room like, we're going to go play Bama again, and then Michigan's just going to come out, a couple big plays. Georgia's down 2 possessions. That's what I think is going to happen.
Good.
But I do think Georgia's going to storm back, but I got U of M 24-21.
Moving on to the championship. My prediction, number 1 versus Alabama versus number 3 Georgia. I think this one's going to be an offensive shootout. It's going to be 41-42. Georgia's going to pull out for the win. I still believe that Georgia is the best football team in NCAA. Obviously, they didn't play like that against Alabama. I still think
Baylor
that they were
over
top.
Georgia.
I still have high hopes for Georgia's football team. I think it's gonna be a high scoring game. Georgia's already seen Bryce Young once. They've already seen that team once. Usually, when a team wins in the regular season, they play that same team in the postseason, they don't win. I think that's also going to be the case
except
here.
when those teams are Alabama and Georgia. You remember what happened like pretty much every other time it's happened? I think 2018, they played in the SEC championship game. Bama won. They played in the Natty. Bama won.
I still see them as the best team in college football. pending that they beat
They were
the number
best,
2 Michigan
If
Wolverines.
they were the best team in college football, they wouldn't have lost to Bama the first time.
Everybody has their games. I still have high hopes for this college football team, pending that they beat number 2 Michigan Wolverines. I think they're going to go in here and win this championship game.
I got U of M and Bama in the Natty. I got U of M 27-20. I also believe that same thing with the Cincinnati game. It's going to depend which Bama team shows up, because I do feel like if the Bama that played Georgia a couple weeks ago shows up, Bama's probably going to win. But if the Bama that played Auburn shows up, no, U of M's winning. I got them 27-20.
Alrighty, well, so that's going to conclude our segment of the of college football. It's also going to conclude this week's episodes, and we'll see you next Thursday with a whole new prediction and top 10 ranking and weekly recap and bowl games and everything like that. So we'll see you then.